Happy Black History Month, and welcome to Miss Erikas Storytime. Hi. Imagine escaping slavery at 15, dressed as a boy, driving a carriage right beside the people hunting you. That was Anna Maria Weems. She was born enslaved in Maryland in 1840. Her family had already been torn apart. Several siblings sold. Her father escaped to Canada and her mother trapped with no way out. But her father never stopped fighting. He bought the freedom of some of his children, but Anna's enslaver refused to sell her. By the time she was a teenager, the threat was clear. Anna was at risk of being sold south. So abolitionists stepped in. They created a bold plan, one of the most daring in the Underground Railroad history. Anna put on a jacket, trousers, and a cap, and she became Joe Wright, a young male carriage driver. Her disguise was so convincing that she passed guards, officials, and slave catchers without a second glance. She traveled from Washington, D.C. to Philadelphia, then to New York. Every step dangerous, but she didn't stop. When she finally crossed into Canada, she was reunited with her family. She went to school at the Elgin settlement and lived there in freedom. It's unclear when she died, but her escape remains one of the most dramatic of the Underground Railroad. And I'll just leave that right there. Hi. The courageous story of Solomon Mosby. Let me tell you a true story about a man named Solomon Mosby. And this is a story about courage, community, and the fight to stay free. A long time ago, Solomon Mosby lived in Kentucky, where he was enslaved by his owner, David Castleman. We don't know exactly when or where Solomon was born, but we do know one very important thing. Solomon wanted to be free. One day, Solomon made a brave and dangerous decision. He was going to escape to Canada. Late that evening, he took his owner's horse and escaped, riding north as fast as he could. He traveled far, crossing rivers, forests, and borders, until he reached Niagara-on-the-Lake, Canada, in 1837. And there, something amazing happened. In Canada, slavery had already been abolished. That meant Solomon was finally legally free. He could find work and start a whole new life. But freedom was not the end of Solomon's worries. Back in the United States, David Castleman learned of Solomon's location. He yelled, "I want Mosby back no matter what." He was angry because Mosby made it to Canada, and it might be difficult to have Solomon return to him. Then he remembered meeting a young politician, Peter Porter, who lived in the Niagara region, and wrote him his dilemma, and further hoping to convince the police to trick Solomon into coming back. Instead, Porter told Castleman to bring his paperwork, proving he owned Solomon to Canada. When Castleman arrived with his documents, Canadian officials arrested Solomon Mosby while they tried to decide what to do next. Until then, Solomon was put in jail. even though he had broken no Canadian law. When the Black community in Niagara heard what had happened, they were shocked and angry. They knew Solomon was free, and they believed he should stay that way. They came together as a community and made a plan. Men and women started gathering outside the jail, determined to protect Solomon. The crowd started to grow. They believed that Canada should never send a free person back into slavery. On September 12th, 1838, the authorities decided Solomon would be sent back to the United States. The sheriff planned to take him by ferry across the river where Castleman could retrieve him, and soldiers from Fort George were called in to help, just in case. But the number of people who supported Solomon far exceeded the number of soldiers present. As the sheriff tried to move Solomon, the crowd rushed forward. In the chaos, Solomon was pulled away and separated. There was shouting, fear, and confusion. Sadly, 2 people lost their lives during the struggle. But when the sheriff looked close, Solomon Mosby had escaped once again. Because of what happened to Solomon Mosby, Canada changed its laws. In 1838, officials decided that no one could be sent back to another country for something that was not a crime in Canada. And that rule still exists today. After his second escape, it is believed that Solomon traveled all the way to England, where he became legally free under British law. Later, it's said he returned to the Niagara area to reunite with his wife and continue his life in freedom. But nobody knows for sure.
I am black, beautiful, proud. I must be respected. I must be protected. I am somebody.
Thank you for watching. And please like, follow, and subscribe from wherever you're listening from. See you next time.